Good evening, fellow Stephanians. This is the sixth and probably last podcast that I will be doing to mark my boycott of the 1995 batch reunion, which I have done to express my anguish and disappointment at the lack of engagement by my batchmates, particularly in the maths class, the maths department, and also I had friends from economics and philosophy. Their absence on the scene when India is facing such a grave time, a crisis. Um, I had offered that we have a debate, we have a conversation, we engage in some way on the Modi regime, uh, including by those and who would be its supporters, to talk about, to discuss what I believe and many believe is the communalization of our society by the Modi regime and its attack on our democratic ethos and undermining of our constitutional institutions. I was hoping to engage, in particular, those who support the regime and don't agree with my estimate of what is happening, because the sight of educated people who are not in active politics or anything else, but simply engaging on this issue seriously and publicly is something that our society needs, and it would be very healing for our society at this point, which is wounded and confused, disoriented, as anyone is if they receive a sock in the nose. Um, Yesterday, or what is it? Today is yesterday, a Stephanian from a batch a few years junior to us released a movie, The Great Shamsuddin Family, and I would urge you to watch that. It's on JioStar. You can stream it at your convenience. People often ask, when there is a terrorist attack or something, where are the Muslims? Why don't they speak up? I can tell you, the Indian Muslim, where is the Indian Muslim? The answer is that the Indian Muslim is writing paeans of love to India and to Hinduism and the culture of what we call Hinduism. Paeans of love, and reeling with the rejection of their open embrace, which had been accepted so far. This is why it's so important for educated people to engage, because we are literally pushing away those who love us. Why would we do that as a society? Why would we do that as a polity? Aren't friendships a strength in life, in private life as well as in public life? Aren't they a comfort? Aren't they a joy? Aren't we better together with our friends? Why would we push away our friends? And this friendship has existed since the time of the so called slavery of Hindus under the Mughals, and in fact, even before that, under the Sultanate. If only you, my fellow Stephanians, would look into that for yourselves and not only listen to the propaganda. I have written a blog. It's thinkindiasabha.blogspot.com, on which I have posted a 400-page work. It's divided into 19 parts, where I explore the history of South India. And it turns out that there was interaction with the Muslim world even there, and from quite early on. And it would be an eye opener. This cosmopolitan, multicultural, multilingual ethos that we speak about has really very, very ancient roots in all parts of our country. And what emerges, the what I have written is called India, Hindutva in History. What emerges over and over again is the love, the interest, and the curiosity of every Muslim who has come here in any position of authority to India, who has settled here, or who has adopted Islam. That's that. If there is a continuous narrative, it is that, and this is something that you must explore for yourselves, because until this barrier, this idea that we were oppressed is broken down, until this happens, we won't be able to take the next step that is required. There are many academics who have written about this in very with evidence and in an engaging manner. I would recommend that you read Richard Eaton, Eaton. He's talked about this whole claim about breaking temples, and you must see the evidence. What were the temples, who broke them, when they were broken, which were the different religions, including the those belonging to Hinduism, who conducted temple breaking. But what was the true spirit? Were they breaking a temple, or was this the fog of war? What about the temples that were built? I mean, this is something that would surprise you. It's not something that even I, as a votary of friendship and just don't care about, these ancient places of worship are nothing compared with our present and our future. Temples, in any case, excluded so many people and continue to do so till today. Here, these are things that is interesting to get to know. Sometimes a horrible phase in your own life or in the life of your own society is an opportunity to learn more, and maybe that is why these phases occur, because we have become ignorant of what the truth is, and without an understanding of that, how can we hold the truth together? But to come back, it's not just this film which is a paean to India, and in its way to it expresses and is just embedded within this very natural love and acceptance of everything that anybody would call Hindu culture. It's there everywhere. It's there in the translations of the Mahabharata and the Ramayana that Akbar and Shah Jahan and Jahangir did. It's there. You won't believe me, but study it. It's there in the legends of Aurangzeb in the Deccan, because the Sangh Parivar has not yet got its roots there, and those legends survive till today, and they came from somewhere. They survive on the walls of temples. Tuluka Nachiyar. Look up the legends of these. Look up the stories of the sultanas who are worshipped as consorts of Vishnu in Vaishnavite temples even today in the south. So study the history of Hindustani and Carnatic music, and you will see how important the interaction was between those who came from the west, from the areas that are today called Afghanistan and Yemen and Syria and Turkey, and the music that we enjoy today and listen to in our temples in the north and the south. Look at our language of Hindi and how it emerged in the context of the Delhi Sultanate under the loving, nurturing and care of Amir Khusro. But also look at the letter, the essay that I read out to you, I think in my second podcast, by my friend Asad Ashraf, and see the thwarted love for India that is there behind every line. Behind every line. If there were people who did not believe in India and who only had suspicion and hostility towards Hinduism or any other faith that was over here, there were very few, and they left. Partition, for all its woe, was also it was a filtration. It separated those who rejected from those who You can't even say accepted because that implies an conscious decision. They lived in acceptance, they were steeped in acceptance. This is who we are. We should recognize this as our strength. The outcome of this is not going to be that these so many lakhs and lakhs of Muslims are going to turn on the rest of India. Why the thing is that a minority can't afford to indulge itself. They just have to get on. And there's been a big renaissance among in Muslim society. It's upper echelons, it's elite, at least in the north, in Punjab, left. All those zamindars, so many of them left. And you were the what was left behind has really pulled themselves up. They've educated their children, sons and daughters. They've joined the professions. They've been very entrepreneurial. By force, they've also had to look outside and see what opportunities they may have in the rest of the world, in the Gulf, in America, and so many other places. And so, these educated will simply, if India is going to continue to be so unwelcoming, they will just leave. They will just leave, and what is going to be left behind, just as you guys left. I mean, from my maths batch in St. Stephen's, I think that there's only two of us now left in India. Two of us out of 40. I mean, it's just been a complete brain drain, complete everything drain. And the same will happen. The educated, the enterprising, the energetic, those who want to have a good life, those who want to have a meaningful life, they will just leave. And what you will have left is the uneducated, naive rabble whom it will be so easy to put at each other's throats. That is what's going to happen here. That is how the flower that bloomed here for thousands and thousands of years, is just going to wither away. So this is not an appeal for you to engage because our Muslim brothers and sisters are going to turn on us if we don't. They have many other pastures. They have many other places to go. Believe me. Zoran Mamdani's election should tell you that they have many other places where they are welcome. But what will happen is that the dream of our independence struggle, the dream of India, is just going to go away. And we will simply become like so many of these other failed nations that surround us and that emerged out of colonialism. You must understand that the unending cycle of violence, the coups, the dictatorships that rise and fall, the brutality, the civil wars in Africa, in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, in Nepal, in Sri Lanka, this is all the result of a failure to understand and adopt at the time that they emerged from colonialism, the importance in Bangladesh, the importance of communal harmony, of respecting diversity, of loving your neighbor, of building trust and bonds, and of respecting, demanding, and nurturing democratic processes. There is not a single one of these countries that are torn apart by violence that have any lack of idealistic people or well-intentioned people or talented and brilliant people. There is no lack of those. Yet they were not able to survive and thrive. At least so far, they have not been able to, as modern, healthy democracies. And the reason for that is that they simply did not understand the process of democracy. Democracy is not about outcomes, really. It's not about who wins. It's not about who is equal or unequal, even at the end of the day. Democracy is simply about a process. It's about a balance of power between the executive, the judiciary. It's about the it's about the army always being subordinate to the political will and the political representatives. It's about Parliament being sovereign, but also being the place, Parliament being the place where debate and dispute and differences are expressed. Parliament, not the street, not the temple. There are so many things. So, and it's just been frittered away because no one understood it. Nehru did understand it. That generation, Gandhi, when you read them again and again, you see the emphasis on the need for democracy, the need for democratic institutions. But after that, even the left didn't understand it. Even the left has been, ideological, and it has participated in the democratic process without really respecting it, without seeing the importance of the process. And that is why it was so vulnerable to what the Modi regime is doing. So there have been mistakes, a failure of understanding on all sides. But this is where we step in. We educated people with some resources, this is where we step in. I urge you again to please engage, get involved. There are many ways in which you can get involved. People who are trying to use the arts, theatre, film, music, to save some of the goodwill in our society, to talk about these things, to express. You could fund these artists. That's one way of being involved. You could establish a forum. You establish it. Keep me out. I mean, what I when I stood up against this 1995 reunion, there's a bit of a history here. It's not just something that happened this year. My first encounter with my batchmates was 5 years ago, like I said, when the Northeast Delhi riots broke out. And before that, I had also participated in the Shaheen Bagh protests, and I found it so rejuvenating. It was the first time actually in my life as an Indian that I saw a movement which spoke the language of Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru, which and spoke the language of the constitution, talked about secularism. In Delhi, at least, and among my cohort, among the people I studied with in school and college, already these had become, words that were so discredited and not allowed in the conversation. And then these riots happened, and my life is there are so many Muslim colleagues, friends, helpmates, artisans that I work with. And while we were on this group, and then the riots happened, and then I happen to have a very bad attack of sinusitis, which I tend to get at in the winter. And so I had to cancel my music classes, 1 week after the other. And finally, when I started feeling better, I gave a call to my ustad. And, he was in such a pathetic state because, I mean, he thought that I, like all his other students, had just decided to uh, cut off links with him because of his religious identity, because suddenly things had become so ugly, and where he lived was right at the edge of this, where the riots broke out. And, I mean, he just sounded so vulnerable, so helpless. And I was just so heartbroken, and then within minutes of putting that phone down, some message came on that group where, one of these American settled Stephanians said, like, should we set up a collection, for the riot affected? And I just, that's what just ticked me off. I was like, you guys, you're sitting there, you're not involved in this, your own politics has led to this, and you think that putting some money together is going to make any difference? I mean, the problem is so much deeper, and your responsibility is not going to be fulfilled by talking about money. I don't think that they even put together any money. And and that's when I exited that group, saying that St. Stephen's was formed to create leaders from India, and where are you? And since then I didn't hear back from these guys. Some of them tried to put me on another smaller maths group, but I mean, I tried to keep them in touch with what I'm doing, but there was no involvement. And in the end, I just left the group because I'm simply cannot allow these people to put themselves in a position where they can tell themselves that they are still friends with someone, friends with me, when they're not engaging. Then you're not my friend, actually. And this is if it's so wrong of you not to engage even when you're being told what is happening, that I was not willing to be on that group. So like, this whole thing has had a history, and I till today it hasn't been resolved. But these kinds of quarrels, that's what makes friendship. uh, and the same holds for us as a society and as a nation. So yes, so I mean, look around and see how you can be involved. And if so set up a conversation, set up a debate, set up engagement. It can be all by Modi supporters, because you assure us. I mean, with as strongly as I may express myself, I'm, certainly not all knowing and all seeing, and I could be missing something. But it would be good if you were in touch, and we could just, keep this, see that you are engaged. And if nothing else, call up a Muslim friend, call up a Muslim colleague, ask them how they're doing. Okay? That much you can do. That much you can do. And it would make a big difference. Ultimately, it's like friendship. Our society is made up of the feelings that we have and the intentions that we have, and also how we express it. Call up and say how you doing. Show someone that you respect them as a human being, and it could make all the difference. Not only to them personally, insofar as you're concerned, but just in the way they themselves see the situation in the country. All the best, guys. We shall meet. We shall meet.